Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and we are sitting down today with Tony Booth, a contractor coach and the host of the Contracting Coachcast podcast. If you haven't checked out his podcast in the past, you really should. Tony's full of a lot of wisdom and a lot of practical tips for the construction industry. Welcome, Tony, and we are so glad to have you here with us today.
Mike, I'm excited to be here with you as well. Thank you for inviting me on your show, and look forward to having a great discussion today.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So first of all, I am curious. Tell me what drove you to become a coach?
Well, I was, through the years, I started in business as a small business. We had a family-owned business, worked in that small business, and we thought we knew what we were doing, and we were, kind of doing our thing. Later in my career, that business closed down due to recession or secession problems, and I ended up working for, one of the large businesses out there, for Skanska for a while, and getting into that environment and seeing the processes and procedures and all the things they did differently, it just made me realize, like, wow, what if I could have had this when I was running my small business? What if I had done just a small fraction of these things? How much stronger would that business have been? So it made me kind of want to share that. And so as I was working there, I kept trying to help a lot of the subs that were on my projects, and I would teach them a lot of the processes and procedures. And it really started to take on, and decided I really wanted to kind of follow that path to help small businesses learn some of those processes and procedures and really be able to take their business to another level.
Wow, well, I admire that passion that you have, and there's nothing like a good mentor or coach out there for sure. I know in my history it was the same thing. I had good friends or other people in the industry that we would always compare notes and kind of share best practices, and so I've seen a lot of good can be done when we kind of help others avoid the pitfalls that we go through.
Exactly. Just sharing that knowledge. And that's just not something that you see very often, especially on the small business side. They feel strange about asking their competition or somebody in a different trade, like how to handle certain things. So that's what I want to be, is that I'm kind of that person to help and guide people and give them ideas on what steps they can take and do to make their business more successful.
That's awesome. So if you were to kind of pick one main thing, what's that advice that you would give to most of these folks that you speak with? What's the most important thing that you would first have them fix?
The biggest thing is communication by far. And that's in construction in general. Like, really, if you look at the problems that we have on construction projects, in construction businesses, a large majority can be drilled back. You peel back the onion, you're going to find out somewhere along the line, communication failed. Whether it's from the design or the owner to the contractor to the supplier, whatever, you dig it back in. A lot of it just comes down to communication failures.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're describing there's kind of a wall between maybe the office, management, executives, where the decisions actually are made on paper, and then the people out in the field, they're making decisions, boots on the ground. There's a barrier or a wall there. How do we get rid of that, get over it or around it?
Well, I kind of look at it, I got a good analogy to think about for that lack of communication. And it is what happens a lot of times. You think about it, the project's built originally during the estimate in the office. There's management that gets involved during contract negotiations, and they've got the whole job in their head. They know how to build it. They know what they want to do. and then they start the project and none of that information transfers out to the field, right? I mean, you think about, the thing nowadays with the DIY furniture you get, you get all this box, it's all flat and you got 19 different pieces and all kinds of nuts and bolts. And think about that thing coming without a set of instructions or two pictures. And basically you got to try to figure out how to put that together, right? We do the same thing in construction way too often. Maybe not to the extreme of no directions or no instructions, but we give very limited instructions out to the field. That engineer that designed that piece of furniture and that manufacturer, they know exactly how it should go together and what piece goes first. But if they don't give us that when we get it in our house, it will take us forever to figure it out. And we do the same in construction, right? We got a set of plans. We have an idea how we're going to build it in the office, and then we ship a crew out and tell them to start framing something or start installing countertops. But nobody told them, step by step. And while these guys are seasoned professionals out in the field, we know that it doesn't hurt for them to have good guidance to do their work.
Oh, wow. Sage advice. I'm thinking back to my days as a framer, and I remember so many times that we would frame a wall normally the way that we would do it. And then, you turn one more page over on the blueprints and there's a very specific nailing pattern or something that you had to do different. And those things get missed often because people don't read the plans.
Right. And the bad thing is somebody in your organization probably saw that nailing pattern at some point before you ever got out there to install that wall, right? Yeah. The estimator already carried an extra, couple man hours because we knew we had to double the framing in that area and everything else, but it never made it to the field. And now we're going back and adding stuff or changing stuff.
Yeah, so we're back to that communication thing that you'd mentioned earlier. So how do we have better quality communication between the field and the office to address those things so they don't become a problem?
Well, it starts, to me, that's a whole cultural thing of the organization. One of the things I see a lot of people try to do is they think they're going to fix it with some software, right? I am a full-on component of the best communication software and platforms and project management. But if you don't use those tools, what good are they? Somebody's got a Slack in their organization, but there's no communication going on in their Slack channels. It's like, what good is it? It's a great tool, but you have to use it. So it really starts in the management, and the leadership. It's got to kind of start from the top down. The top leadership has to be good communicators, and they have to get that through. And they also have to be ready to take it from the bottom up, get that feedback. I always try to tell all my listeners and my clients, we've got to go solicit feedback. As a leader, your job is to learn how to listen, right? Like that's just as important as guiding someone, is understanding, is that communication going through right, and are we getting feedback?
Yeah, that's great advice. I know I always say the best leaders are actually also wonderful followers.
Mm-hmm.
We have to follow in order to lead, and I love what you said about the communication from the field back to the office. I know that's, in my experience and background, it was the same thing. And now, I'm a part of a software company for construction. So I see the other side of that now. And like you said, I wish I could just rewind the tape and go back and apply all that I've learned here.
Right.
To my young fledgling construction company. So back to communication. So what is the driving force? I mean, you mentioned that executives or management ownership has to be behind it, but what's kind of the force behind that?
It's kind of like, it's really it's a shame. It's a kind of shift in the mindset. For whatever reason, we've always felt like the people in the field don't need certain bits of information, and there's things they don't need to know. It's kind of like the old, you used to see the the things in the break room, like they treat me like a mushroom, right? Where they put you in a corner and just pile stuff on top of you, and for some reason, that has been the trends for years. And it really is about shifting the mindset of your leadership. The buzzword going around, for the last 5 to 10 years has been servant leadership, but it really is that type of leadership. It's shifting that mindset in leadership. A lot of times what we see in construction and kind of that old mindset is we assign something as a manager, we kind of forget about it, and then we expect it to happen, right? Like, if I'm a VP in an organization and I got a project, I'm going to assign it to my PM and say, okay, there you go, and then I kind of forget about it. Maybe go see him once a month and check in on the project. We never do the three things I always try to enforce upon people is, number one, you have to outline expectations, which takes good communication. Don't just give them the project, outline the expectations of what you want people to do. And then as leaders, it's our job to support them along the way, give them the tools they need, and guide them when they get off course. I always used to have a thing on with all my guys that I ran, and everything was simplified. The PM's role on a project was to put the tools in the toolbox, right? Like our thing was, we ran, the PM managed paperwork and stuff like that. And we had a superintendent that was in charge of getting stuff done. And used to tell all my PMs, your number one priority is making sure that superintendent has the tools and information he needs to get the work done. Because if we're not getting work done, it doesn't matter what we're doing. We're not making money, right? We're not making our clients happy. We're not doing anything if we're not putting our product together. And so it's that servant kind of way of looking at things and shifting that mindset that really drives that whole communication.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that production obviously that's what this is all about. It's about actually getting something accomplished, not only correctly and on time, but you, at some point, you've just got to start framing the wall. You can't overplan, aim, fire.
Right.
And the other thing you mentioned, as far as communication goes, I really love how you framed the fact that there's almost got to be a plan to execute on the plan. So kind of rules of engagement. And it sounds like everybody needs to be aware of what that plan is on a regular basis. And then my favorite part that you said is that you basically check back in and give that feedback loop, so that making sure you're still on course. I think of an airline pilot or somebody that's,
right,
Earth is spinning underneath. We got to have that trajectory planned appropriately in order to make sure the plane's able to hit the runway.
Right. And we got to have those, those warning signals when things are getting out of, they start to go off. And the only way to know that is good communication. If I'm running, I've got several teams that are out building projects for me. If I'm communicating with them and we've got that dialogue, then we can start to see what's happening and we can make those adjustments before we get too far off course. And I totally agree with you. Like, you can't sit and plan everything forever, right? I mean, to me, you got to have a plan, but we know that the plan's going to change. Mm-hmm. But at least we have a plan. We know where we're trying to get, and then it's adjusting. It's the traditional plan, do, check, act, right? We've got to make our plan and we go out, and that all requires good communication.
Yeah, and I like you, I'm a proponent of software and systems to help manage those things. Those can, if you've got good systems and good software, you really can keep people on the same page all the time, or daily at least.
Right, and you can, like, the thing I like about using good collaboration tools and stuff, and we can talk a little bit more detail about this later, but so many times people try to do things in big meetings, and I've never been a huge fan of too many meetings. When me as a project manager, I can have a discussion Monday morning with my superintendent on all the tasks we expect to accomplish that week. Right now, I don't have to have it with everybody on the project. If I have good collaboration software and tools, we're going to have that stuff. The key point is the superintendent and the key roles can have that discussion, and then it can filter down where it needs to be face to face, but the rest of it can all be picked up. If I've got somebody in the main office that's worrying about materials, can then look in my system and see, oh, here's what they're doing this week, right? So it saves a lot of, it makes a lot of savings in communication time and wasted time of repeating messages over and over again, or getting too many people into a meeting to try to figure something out.
Yeah, and nobody likes to redo what they just did. So I think
Right.
everybody benefits if we can avoid having to tear something apart that we just put together and then to redo it. We're wasting materials, time, opportunity costs.
Absolutely.
This goes on. So, so I love what you said about having software or something in place to communicate with. You know, you mentioned at the top, communication's key to all of this, and I sure believe that's just critical. We've all played the old tin can phone game, you know, where you go around the circle and you get back to the beginning, and it's amazing what the message becomes.
Yep.
Once it's changed hands 10 times. So
Absolutely. And that's where having those systems and using a good platform for communication solves all those, not all those problems, but it solves a lot of them. It really eliminates, I have a discussion or I have the comment to be made on a drawing or a supplier or anything like that. By having those tools, everybody sees it. Instead of me just saying to the superintendent, hey, you know, the guys are laying that wall out. It looks like it's different from the recent drawing that we got. You better check it. Well, if I just say that to him in passing or her, and then they don't think to act on it right away, what can happen? It continues to get laid out wrong. It gets installed wrong. Where if you have the systems in place to streamline all that with a good platform, then guess what? Everybody's getting that notice. Everybody that's important knows, oh, and I can, you know, with the good tools, we can earmark that person that's doing that layout. Hey, whatever you're doing, check this, you know, just way better ways. The technology nowadays just provides such great tools for us to communicate with. We just need to learn to use them better.
yeah, and I think along with that, it's almost where the field intentionally depends on those tools. It's not just somebody barking at them, hey, you forgot to check with it. I mean, they need to depend on it, and I think there's good or better ways to make sure that happens. In your experience, how have you been able to successfully direct companies to count on those tools and actually utilize them more properly when they're not?
It's really kind of like we were talking about earlier, it's that making sure, you know, checking in, supporting the teams, so that it takes a little time. It takes a little effort to get everybody used to that. They're used to pulling out a set of paper drawings. Now they're going to a collaboration software. So in the beginning, it takes a lot of, like I tell people, sometimes you have to micromanage a little bit in the beginning as you're adapting something like this. And, you know, keep an eye on your teams and remind them, hey, you know, you sent that email the other day, but that email, that conversation should have been inside the platform, right? You know, or I know you called me about this the other day, but you didn't follow up inside the platform. You calling me doesn't let the whole team know. Make sure we record that back into the platform. So it takes a little micromanaging to get people used to it. But after they get used to it, what I found with guys I work with, once they got used to those tools and they realize they can communicate back as well, you know, like, so now the guy in the field can ask questions and make comments back like, hey, I thought we should do it this way. Then they all start to see the benefit of it, and it becomes much more adapted by the entire organization.
Yeah, I think the operative word that, you know, as you were just sharing that, I hear, and the word collaboration just keeps ringing in my ears. That's back and forth. That's active, living, breathing. You know, our job sites are a breathing organism. They're alive. They've got to keep moving. and to remain healthy, they've got to make sure that certain parts of them are, going through a certain process that it's designed for in order to be completed properly. So
Right. And the other great thing I like about having a good platform with all those tools in there for communication is we're not interrupting people at our convenience. They're able to learn and pick up what they need to know at their convenience. So yeah, we've got a guy, a change comes in on a layout, but the guy doing the layout, he's working over on another side of the project today. But we're going to interrupt him in the middle of the day to tell him that what he's laying out a week, 2 days from now has a change to it. It's important that he knows, but do we really want to interrupt him? With a good platform like that? That change is noted in there. We're able to give the communication when it fits our time, and they're able to absorb the communication when it fits their time. So it's not that interruptive disruption that often happens with traditional tools of communication.
yeah, you've used the word platform a lot, which I love also, because to me that means it's a common place where multiple people can interact and share information. Paper is not a platform.
No.
Excel really isn't a platform either.
It's not. It's just a piece of paper that's been digitized. I mean, same thing, emails, just, it's just mail delivered a different way. It's still not, there's nothing collaborative. There's no platform there. We're not, it's me sending something to you, you sending something to me, not us collaborating on anything.
Yeah, and how often do we get a read receipt, or I see you read but that doesn't mean they understood it, digested it, acted on it.
And the traditional, back to like kind of that structure in an organization, think about what happens to that, that newer assistant PM or PM that's on your team now, and he gets something in an email telling him to do something. He doesn't necessarily understand it, but he feels like, well, if I ask the question, am I going to look stupid?
Yeah.
And so when it's in email, you feel like you got to be more strict in your communications, where if it's a nice platform, then it can be easier to kind of talk back and forth, and it just makes for a better way of communicating, because we feel like we're there together.
Yeah, back to the paper and spreadsheet idea. I'm part of an organization, About Time Technologies. It's something that we do, also collect data digitally. And I know often when I'm speaking or doing webinars or meeting with customers, something that comes to mind for me is when we have tools, technology tools that are a platform where multiple people have access and visibility, you can manage data, not drama. And so there's nothing to talk about. I have the data in front of me. I already know, you already know. You can eliminate so many unnecessary cycles of back and forth, which to me, thinking back in construction, a lot of times we introduce hesitancy, even when we're completing, our direction we're giving, we're injecting something that causes doubt or unsurety. And like you said, people might feel stupid by re-clarifying or confirming. And so sometimes we can over communicate using ineffective tools.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I often tell people that you can't push that limit. You'll probably never over communicate, but you can if you're not doing it effectively and you're not doing it the right way. I don't agree with micromanaging whatsoever. If I have to micromanage if you have to micromanage someone, then you're not getting that benefit of having someone there that can be productive. But we have to communicate with them, and instead of communicating directions, we communicate expectations and then give our support and follow up, right? That's how you build self-sustaining teams. And that's how you have crews that go out in the field, and the minute they hit a problem, they're coming right to you. Hey, I got this problem. Because they feel like there's that open communication and ability to communicate on things, not this feeling like, oh, okay, you gave me this problem and I guess it's my job to solve it. right? Like you couldn't help me here, kind of thing,
So I'm hearing an effective feedback loop or a process that's established to communicate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as leaders, for everybody out there, whether you're the crew lead, whatever position you're at, when you have people that work for you, one of your first things to do is learn to listen to their feedback, and be collaborative with that. I remember early on in my career looking at, on a job when I was real young, and the superintendent's telling us to do things a certain way. And I'm asking, why couldn't we do this instead? And his immediate answer was, because I told you to do it the other way, right? Like, that's not good collaboration, right?
Right.
Maybe if he'd have listened to me, I don't know if I had a good idea. I just remember him like just shutting everybody down. My idea might have been stupid, but at the same time, it might have been good. And combined with his knowledge, we might have found a new way to increase productivity by 10% or 20%, or eliminate errors, right? I mean, the people in the field have a lot of knowledge that we don't tap well enough, in my opinion. I mean, there's just, we way too often think that they really don't understand, but they do. And the more we allow them to know what's going on, the better they understand.
So they're really, that's the other thing that I've learned over the years. I wish I would have learned it earlier in my construction career, but those people with boots on the ground with the hammer or whatever tool, operating the backhoe, they are running your business.
Absolutely.
So
They are your business. They are the ones. It doesn't matter how good you are back in the office or how good you are going to meet your client. It's those frontline people that are making a difference in your business. I mean, without them, we don't get anything done.
well, it's like, in sales, we say, nothing happens till somebody sells something. Well, in construction, it's the same. Till somebody builds something,
Right.
there's no money.
There's nothing.
Just expense, right?
Uh-huh. No, exactly.
So with, there's a few things that you talked about there that I really liked, on the communication side. What processes or tools or methods have you seen be effective for communicating from the field to the office?
Okay, so the most effective thing that I've taught a lot of people to do, excuse me, I call them drop-ins. Comes from an old book I read years ago, Management by Walking Around. And it's really about, as a leader, manager, and even crew leads, like this applies to anybody. If you have people that you're directing their performance and their work, we've got to walk around and we've got to be out there and see how they're doing. And we got to drop in and just talk to them, not drop in to give directions, but spend 5 minutes with your laborer that you've got assigned to cleaning out the job site. It's Friday afternoon. We want to get the job site clean. So you've got a laborer. He's out there doing that. Stop in and see him. Stop by, just drop by, talk to him a little bit. How's it going? Right? He might say, hey, it's going great, but if I had a wheelbarrow that I could carry with me, I could get this done in half the time. You never know what you find out. Or they might tell you something about what what their perception is of the business or something that they've overheard. That's how we get good feedback. So as a manager leader, sometimes we got to take that kind of production blindfolds off, right? The blinders that kind of get us focused on, why is he not working hard enough, or why is she not doing this right? Sometimes we got to take those off and just, be human and speak to our people and just open up for feedback.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great advice for anybody running a business, not just construction.
Right.
In our software business, same thing. It's boots on the ground, and I think too, to your point, if that's the exception or that's weird, that what's he doing on the job site, and everybody puckers and it's nervous. That's not good either, right?
Exactly. And I've had to have that conversation with many of my clients when we talk about it. They're like, oh, well, when I show up on the job, the guys like seem to scatter and go to work, and everything seems to go a certain way, and it's like they feel awkward talking to me. I said, yeah, that's a key indicator that you have a communication problem in your organization. I said, if those people don't feel like they can come talk to you about anything, then you're not getting all the information you should be getting.
So I'm hearing kind of the culture aspect of things is important, not just the right technology tools, not just a platform, not just communication in terms of digital or, software systems, but just being a person and being present.
Yeah, having a little empathy, and it all kind of comes around that idea of servant leadership. I've always looked at my employees a little differently, in that they choose to give me 8 hours a day.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? It's not that I choose to give them a position or a paycheck. There's thousands of other companies they could go to work for. They choose to come work at mine. So it's my job to be grateful for that and help them.
So you're advocating to empower them, like I said earlier, to be kind of partners or owners in that business. They take ownership, quite literally.
Yeah, definitely. And when it's done right, you get that. They buy into your whole organization and they're part of it. They want to see the success. But that takes sharing information and really letting them understand, kind of what's going on and what's expected of them. Why do we do what we do? Why is it important that when we write that email to the client, we follow certain guidelines? Why is it important when we turn an invoice in that it's done a certain way? All those things have meaning to the leaders.
Mhm.
But if we don't tell everybody in the field why it's important to us, then they don't know why they should be doing it.
So it also sounds like there's a lot of nonverbal communication that impacts how these projects run, the way we behave and handle ourselves, interact.
Oh, absolutely. You think with the people that are on the projects, with the people that are going by the projects, the clients, the suppliers, they all pick up on our cues of how we manage our project and how we communicate. And the better we do that, the better people are going to want to work with us, work for us, be a part of our projects.
Well, and what I've seen too is, again, businesses that we work with every day, when they're using technology tools that are accurate and instill confidence, it's not just in their management, but if I'm billing somebody that I'm doing subcontract work for, using an automated real-time tool that is accurate and verifiable and you can have confidence in, they're going to be trained and groomed to understand that that's how you run a tight ship.
Uh-huh.
And you're tracking your money just like you're tracking their money, and they're going to
Absolutely.
pay that more readily without quite the arguments that contractors like to get in sometimes over.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point, because that is something that just really, that extends all the way through the job site. When that trade contractor knows that you run a tight ship, he's going to be explaining that, or she's going to be explaining that to her people. Like, hey, this is important to them. This is how we work for them. But they also like that too, right? Like, who doesn't want that, right? Nice, calm, good communication, good flow on a project. We all love to work on those.
Yeah, I think, and when I think back to not just when I ran my construction company, but again today and everybody that we interact with, 99+% of people out there, they really do want to do a good job. I think it's the exception completely that somebody really doesn't care.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. It's to me, I've always felt it's a rare exception. And I've always looked at it, again, another little way I always looked at my people was, if they're not performing up to par, then it's probably something I haven't done well enough yet. And I'm going to give them the initial benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to pay a little more attention and work with them. Now, you're right. There's that 0.1 or that 1% out there that's maybe not improving. Maybe they're not a fit for your organization, but don't immediately wipe them out, write them off because they're not living up to maybe expectations we didn't communicate well enough with them.
Well, and I think too, peer pressure works all kinds of different ways. There's negative peer pressure, and then there's positive peer pressure. And I saw this. I worked on crews, or I worked with people that were very hard, diligent workers, and then I worked with other people that they were happy to go down and sweep out the boss's shop and kind of do
Right,
busy work because they didn't like getting in and working hard necessarily all the time. So
right.
that culture of wanting to work hard, wanting to be diligent, wanting to do a good job is also, I think it's pervasive where you can elevate the level of the whole crew by just having that kind of culture from your leadership in the field.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So again, you've been at this for a long time. I listened to a few of your podcast episodes. You've got over 1,600 of them. So wow, uh, how has that changed your perspective over the course of years that you've been doing this? What's different for you today than maybe when you started?
I would say I'm more excited about where things can go, because the more I've spent time learning more about construction, learning more about leadership, about people, and because I can't be a good coach if I'm not a good study, right? So the more I've learned that, and the more advancements I've made myself, the I guess I'm much more optimistic about abilities to change, about the future, and know that we really can make a difference in construction, and it really can move forward. As much as people sometimes think it's kind of stuck in the Stone Age, I totally disagree. And it's definitely shifting a lot and going to shift a lot more.
Yeah, like you, I'm very excited about the tools that we have today. I'm sure you remember, like I do, before cell phones existed in construction, and that was a whole different animal than what
Oh,
we're dealing
yeah.
with. So having said that, as I think back, and as we kind of wrap up a little bit here, if you've got some sort of hack or superpower or something that you've kind of really been able to develop over this history of yours, what is your secret sauce if you have one?
I would sum it up as focus, kind of focus management, and and kind of batching, right? I learned this years ago as a project manager, and I didn't realize how well I had done it until a new superintendent came on a project with me. And about 3 months into the project, he's like, how are you able to do everything you're supposed to do when every other project manager I work for in this company has to spend 12, 14 hours a day? And I was like, I don't need that much time. But what I did, I focused and didn't, learn to block out interruptions, right? Like I plan out my day. I set blocks of time out. And if I'm working on invoicing, nobody else is coming into the office and I'm not answering phones for that hour to 2 hours that I've got to get the invoicing done. If I'm writing an RFI, I'm not stopping in the middle, to do those things. And it took a while to teach everybody on the organization that this is how it worked, but I got it to where, if somebody in the field had a question, they knew to come in. If my door was shut, they would leave a post-it note on the door, come see me when you're done. Or if my door was open, they might poke in. If I was busy, I'd say, they go, okay, come find me, and so I would take blocks of time, focus on tasks, then take the other time to go have that communication and that dialogue. So that's where, to me, like technology and platforms help with all that too, because now I can have that system to organize everything, because it's organizing your focus, I think, matters the most, as far as getting your productivity done. And then the other thing I do is a lot of communication. And I used to have what I always called them little mini talks. And basically, every day there was a different topic that I would discuss with my superintendent, so that we weren't wasting each other's time for an hour going through everything on the project. It was like, okay, I'm going to go see the superintendent. We're going to talk about this week's task. That's it. I don't want to hear about changes. I don't want, let's just talk about what we got going on. We could spend 5 minutes, get a lot of communication done, and then go back to doing our thing. So it's really about managing that focus. You do that right, plan ahead, avoid putting out fires, and all those things.
I love that. Great advice. So what I'm hearing is the coach calls a huddle, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. A huddle. That is absolutely those are the things I always like to do is little huddles. We don't need the entire team.
Right.
That's perfect. You don't need the entire team. You need the people that are about to execute the play. That's all you need. 2-minute, 5-minute huddle, boom, off we go.
Yeah, and the past downs don't matter. You've got the next one you got to focus on. So it's always about moving forward up the field on your projects, and so that's fantastic.
Now that's a great way. I'm gonna steal that one from you. I'm gonna
No
start
problem.
using the huddle for that. Thank you.
Free of charge, no problem. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for spending a little time with us today. This was very enjoyable. I sincerely enjoyed having you on, and look forward to maybe we can do this again down the road. So.
Absolutely, I'd love to, and thank you for having me on as well. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it, and definitely ready to do it again.
Sounds good. Well, thank you all. Again, if you like this conversation today and were able to learn anything new or pick up some helpful tips or hints, please follow us on Instagram at workmax_ and subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform. And then you'll never miss any of those insightful episodes. Also, please give us a rating and review. 5-star reviews will help us to continue to provide this and help you to improve your business and in turn your life.